I think the first thing we need to remember is that Ukraine, or what is now Ukraine, used to be part of Russia for many, many years in the past. But then Ukrainians decided to go their own way, and the Russian government wanted Ukraine to be part of Russia or to be like Russia.
Ukraine, as Vitaly was saying, once it decided it wanted to be its own country, over the next decades, it was trying to look away from Russia. So you've got Russia to its east, and to its west, you've got Europe and countries like the UK. And Ukraine is thinking, right, why don't we join the same political groups as the UK? We want to have the same lifestyles, we want to have the same elections. And this is something that Russia, and you'll hear his name a lot, its leader, a guy called Vladimir Putin, did not like. And so the more Ukraine was trying to be the same as countries like the UK and France and Germany, Russia was trying to pull it the other way.
Many people, though, actually argue that the war started in 2014, don't they, when the Russians took over Crimea. Is that something that we should be talking about in context of what happened now in 2022?
Absolutely, but we're all guilty, right? It's really hard to keep pace with this story. I mean, all of you will remember 2022, right? Can you remember it being in the news? I mean, some of you more than others, of course. You experienced it. But when you were very young, Russia had already started its military action against Ukraine. As Ricky was saying, it had secretly sent soldiers into this part of Ukraine called Crimea, and it had also given weapons to these fighters in another part of Ukraine. So it was already starting. If we think about pulling Ukraine, it had already been starting to do that, but it had been building, and that is why we saw it go from those small bits of fighting into something much bigger.
James, what exactly did happen on that day in February 2022?
Well, what happened was, for the 6 weeks before the invasion, I had arrived in Ukraine. Vladimir Putin of Russia, he had gathered 150,000 of his troops on Ukraine's borders. And he had said, they're just practicing. But then at 5 a.m. on that morning in February 2022, he sent them in. And what you ended up with were columns, rows of soldiers coming in that were dozens of miles long, and they were moving closer to Ukraine's major cities. I was in the capital, Kiev, and they were moving in from 3 directions. And many thought Ukraine would fall within days. We saw people abandon their cars and head westwards. After a month, Ukraine put up a fight that few expected. They pulled away and concentrated on the southeast of Ukraine, which is where the war still is today.
Let's hear our next question, and we've got 2 people actually. Harvey and JD, where are you? Do stand up.
My question is, does the war with Russia and Ukraine affect specific parts more than others?
JD, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you. What's your question?
Are there any specific safe places in Ukraine?
Most of the fighting is happening in the southeast, and the safer places, they tend to be in the west of Ukraine. But we have to remember that there's no absolutely safe place in Ukraine, east or west, unless we're talking about a particularly strong basement or bunker that can't be destroyed.
So when you look at Ukraine, it's such a big country, isn't it?
Enormous.
But most of the fighting is happening in the east, which borders Russia, but there's still a lot of uncertainty in other parts, like in the west.
Yeah, it's a war that touches everyone. In the east, you're obviously closer to the fighting. The Russians have well-established routes and supply lines to send their troops in from Russia itself. That's where the border with Russia is. And then if you're in a city like Kiev or Odessa in the south, Kiev's the capital, you have these constant airstrikes time and time again. So you might not have to be near a battlefield, but you can still be affected by this war.
And Ricky, you have obviously been there, you've been reporting there, you've talked to children. Are there some places that felt safe for those children?
In some of the cities, some of the bigger areas, where life does return to a level of normality. You certainly feel safe or safer. But there are moments that come when you're least expecting, when you hear an air raid siren and you realise that actually, although you might have felt safe, you're not. Interestingly, I was talking to one of the boys here who travelled to the UK from Ukraine a couple of years ago. He's since returned for a summer holiday.
Which sounds weird.
Which does sound really
Yeah.
strange to think of having a holiday, but of course, a lot of these children who are with us in the audience today, they want to go back, they want to go and see their family members, and given the opportunity, they can do that.